If you love movies, you're in the right place, and this place is here at the Chronicle, the official film podcast for the people's movies. Welcome back. Welcome to episode 57. My name is Paul. I'm your host, as well as the editor of the people's movies. Thank you for joining us here. And today we don't have one, we have two co-hosts. We have Clotilde and Becci Sayce. How are you, ladies?
Good, yeah, good.
Hello,
Excited
I'm
for you to chat
good.
about these films.
Yeah, so we're actually going to do two films. We're going to do Ready or Not 2, and we're going to do Project Hail Mary. And for this review, the first review we're doing in episode 57 of the Chronicle Film Podcast, we're doing Ready or Not 2. Becky, would you like to tell us a little bit about the film, and then obviously you can go into it if you liked or didn't like the movie?
Yeah, of course. So the film sees Samara Weaving reprise her role as Grace Ladomus or Grace Macaulay. It also stars Kathryn Newton, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Sean Hatosi, David Cronenberg, and Elijah Wood. And it's set immediately after the events of the first film, which, if anyone needs a quick recap, is that Grace married into the Ladomus family, and it turned out on her wedding night that she had to survive the night as part of like an ancient deal with the devil. The family had to kill her by the end of the night or they all exploded. What happened was they all exploded. Grace is found at the house and she's then taken to the hospital, detained, ready to be questioned. But it turns out that her surviving has set off a new game for the surviving families, for rival families, to claim the high seat of the council, which was owned by or claimed by the Ladomas family. So herself, as well as her estranged sister Faith, are taken to a brand new remote mansion to once again survive the night.
Yeah, and did you like it?
I really liked it. I really enjoyed the original film. I thought it was just a really
Yeah.
simple concept, which really works for it. Just this like cat and mouse game, really eclectic characters, very simple narrative that means that you focus on like how strange the characters are and how strange the situation is. And I didn't expect too much from this because I feel like Ready or Not was very much a self-contained story, and it not that anything necessarily needs a sequel, but I was really surprised when a sequel was announced. But I feel like what it did so well in the first one, it really pushes in this one. Like it knows it's a simplistic concept. It kind of makes it a little bit more convoluted in this with a little bit more rules as to like the High Council and their deal with the devil and what exactly is going on. But it kind of feels earned because they push it so far out with how crazy the characters are, how crazy the violence is. The sets are fantastic, the costumes are fantastic. Like this one, it really upped the ante in terms of like the violence and the humor and the overall campness of it. And I think it really, really worked. I don't think it's necessarily a perfect film. There's definitely bits where, the dialogue's a little cheesy. Some of the acting's very, OTT. But I think overall it's a very, very good popcorn horror to go and see with your friends, laugh at how ridiculous it is. And I think it really dragged me in. Let me say, like, some of the performances are very campy and like very cheesy. Some of them are absolutely phenomenal. And it's really easy to really root for the characters at the center of it. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was very, very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, yeah, it was. There was a lot of cheesy humour. Folks, if you love your Sam Raimi's gore fest, blood fest, this definitely ticks all the boxes. It's she said it's a popcorn movie type film. Clotilda, have you seen Ready or Not 2? You're the sort of
I
fil-
have.
you've been a
I
non-horror
really
fan.
enjoyed it.
Way,
I
you
know
actually enjoyed
exactly.
the
I was
horror.
very surprised that I liked it. I struggle quite a bit with horror films, but I think I enjoyed it because it's so fun and there's quite a lot of comedy in it, which, is not always easy to mix well, I think, with horror. I think it's a really fine balance, and I think that Ready or Not really achieves it. I think as well it really I liked how it played out on like the elements of the first film, expanded the universe. It was quite tricky to do, I think. I was at the London screening where we were lucky enough to have some people in attendance.
Oh,
And the director spoke about
Mm.
how they never like they didn't really envision a sequel when they first did the movie, which I think it makes sense, right? You don't necessarily think it's a movie that's gonna have a sequel. But I think when you do watch the sequel, it kind of feels natural. Like I never felt like there was anything forced. Um, I do agree that some of the lines are a bit cheesy, but I think it works. Like you really buy into everything that they're saying. I don't know, like when I was watching, I was like, yeah, of course there's a council. Like that's the obvious next step. And of course she has a sister. Like all of this makes a lot of sense. But I enjoyed how unpredictable it was. There were certain things that really took me by surprise. There were certain things I really struggled to watch, let's be honest. But that's just me. I don't do well with horror films. But I think I also enjoyed it because I think it's trying to say something, right? There's a whole commentary on society, and especially on, these super rich that essentially control the world, that I think we can sort of apply to our world. And I enjoy that very much in my films in general, and I think that's why this one really went well with me. So I think it's really fun. It really made me wanna rewatch the first one as well. um I would love to see them like back to back. I have to say as well, like the introduction of her sister, she was brilliant. She was so funny. I'm really glad they did that. And like all the characters, the new characters, they're really well explored. I think if you think about it, there's so many new characters, right? And at the beginning, when they introduced so many, I was a little bit worried that they wouldn't have time to sort of explore them all because, of course, some of them are not even on screen for a very long time.
No.
But I think overall they did a good job with that. I think you can sort of get an idea of the families and who's who and their personalities, even for those that are not on the screen for a very long time.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I agree with you, Becky. It's maybe not got the same impact as the first film. You're correct. It's the first film is the storyline is very simple, but the second film I think it gets a little bit more complicated, not overcomplicated. And compared to the simplicity of the first film, it gets a little bit complicated. I think at times the humour gets a more satire rather than laugh out loud, though there is a lot of laugh out loud in it, i.e. bath time. And that's one of them. And I love the creepiness of it as well. But they had that sort of humour. Folks, Elijah Wood's in this, and he's, without going into any spoilers, for any reviews that we made do, apologies, I know spoiler may pop out, but sometimes it has to. He may not be who he seems to be, however, at the end of the film, it does play on that, who he might be. And yeah, I liked also, as you say, Kathryn Newton and Samara Weaving, who is definitely one of the, is it they call them Scream Girls, is it? She's definitely a very up Scream Girl because she seems to do a lot of horrors. Nowadays, a lot of horrors that maybe going to Shudder or sort of direct to digital type thing. And I really like the two of them, how the two of them sort of played off each other, how they hated each other, but at the same time they loved each other. How when the two of them meet in the hospital, she just Faith just seems to be Grace's emergency contact number. Even though throughout the film they have arguments and you start to learn why they don't like each other, and little truths come out. I liked that side of things. How about I just love he wasn't in it for long, folks, but the one and only David Cronenberg. He was, yeah, he wasn't in it for long, but he had some part. What do you think?
I love that. I honestly think that everyone, like Clotilde says, there's some people that really aren't in this film very long, but it really feels like everyone makes an impact. And I
Yeah,
love that. Like you say, David Cronenberg's in it for a scene and absolutely dominates it.
yeah,
And Kathryn Newton, I'd read, she'd said in an interview that her role was written with her in mind. And
yeah,
I think that's genius, putting her and Samara Weaving together, two like up and coming scream queens. Like we've seen Kathryn Newton in like Freaky, Lisa Frankenstein, Abigail, and then Samara Weaving, like you say, has been in so many films now, and they
yeah,
play off each other really well because they both take that role slightly differently. Like we see Kathryn Newton's character is more like the sharp wit, like cutting comments, screaming silly, like slapstick
yeah.
violence. Whereas like with Samara Weaving, we see more of that terror and that fear and that strength overcoming, like the classic sort of final girl. So I think putting them together was absolute genius. But yeah, I completely agree with what you're both saying. Like the cast in this, everyone has their moment to shine. And there really is a lot of new characters in this, and they're all so diverse. But I feel like there's a lot more grey area in this film than there was in the original. Like the original, it was very much like good in Samara Weaving's character versus evil, the Ladonis family.
Yeah.
Then in this, you have a lot with obviously Sarah Michelle Gellar's character and also Sean Hatosi's character, Ursula and Titus. When Titus we see is obviously very power hungry and he is the big bad really in this.
Yeah.
As Ursula, we see her sort of struggling with everything a little more. And we see it also with Olivia Chang's character where she's trying to offer them an out. I think it's really interesting that they sort of looked at that more through the characters in this film. The sort of, you know, they were born into this council. They don't necessarily have any choice in it and they don't necessarily want to do what they're doing. And then we see sort of Samara Weaving's character, Grace, come under scrutiny and the idea of like she abandoned her sister in a horrible situation with a foster family. I think they definitely, even though they introduced a lot more characters in this, there was definitely the danger of people falling down the wayside. I think they did a really, really good job in rounding them out a lot more in this. And I do think it's what makes this film. It could have definitely been a very middle of the road 2 to 3 star slasher, but I do think it's what is going to make people rewatch this film and rewatch both of them and potentially get us a third one, I reckon.
I think the ending, it is a sort of ending, but it isn't at the same time. You know, and it's left an open book. Did you know that this film was actually, they might have said it at the event you were at, Clotilde, that the film was actually, I think you just said it, actually, I'm probably repeating what you said there, Becky, that it was, the script was actually getting made as a spin-off for Kathryn Newton's character. I heard that in a podcast, I think, the
Oh,
last
I'd
couple
watch
of,
that.
yeah, but the more they thought of it, no, you have to combine the two of them together, you know. But as you said, both of them have got a long line of different horror films, and they're making their way up the horror, if like you say, the horror family. You know, I liked how the council, as you said, how everyone's completely different. They explored a lot bit more of the mythology of the families. Also, obviously the Faith and Grace, we saw their sort of relationship, but we also saw Titus and Sarah Michelle Gellar's their relationship, which was completely different. There was one scene in it I would like you to ask. It sort of made me a bit uncomfortable because it was something that was a bit. I'm not going to say, folks, what it is, but it was a wee bit too close to comfort grounded. It was a scene with Kathryn Newton, Atoshi. It's something the two of them were doing whilst Grace was fighting with the pepper spray with the jealous other bride who get jilted. Do you know the bit I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how did you see that? I thought it might have lowered the tone a little bit, but at the same time, I think it also showed how evil and how nasty Titus was.
Yeah, I thought the juxtaposition of the two fights was very interesting because obviously we had Samara Weaving's character fighting with the ex-girlfriend of a like now deceased husband, and it's very funny. Like I really,
Yeah.
really liked that where they're just taking swings at each other and obviously missing because they've both blinded themselves with the pepper spray, as opposed to Sean Hatosi just beating the shit out of a young girl.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite effective that it's showing like the very humorous fight to the very violent fight.
Yeah.
But I agree, I did find it quite uncomfortable in the sense that, you know, we are in the middle of like an epidemic of violence against women and girls. We're
Yeah.
seeing this constantly in the news, on social media, where I write a lot of stories for Metro. We're running a campaign at the moment, This Is Not Right, highlighting stories about violence of women and girls and what people can do because of the sheer amount of stories that we are seeing. And I think that's what's quite shocking about it, the fact that it's almost not that unusual to see something like that next to,
Yeah.
you know, quite a humorous fight, because you can be scrolling through Instagram like funny reel, funny reel, funny reel. Oh, something absolutely diabolical, and it's real. And I thought that was what was quite interesting and sobering about it, because I'd not really thought about it until you just said, like, oh, it's very close to home. Like, yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrible, but it's so easy to sort of normalize it. And I think that's what's so shocking about it and what's so interesting about this film. There's a lot of very comedic, outlandish, very campy moments, but then it suddenly becomes incredibly serious and incredibly like heartfelt and dangerous and scary. And yeah, it's a very interesting way to deal with it.
Yeah. What do you think, Clotilda?
I agree. I think we've become so desensitized to this kind of stuff. And in a way, I feel like that's why maybe I didn't pick up on it straight away. Obviously, it's very uncomfortable in the film, but I think it's how it's portrayed. Like, it's meant to be uncomfortable. It's not meant to be just a normal scene. And it is meant to show us just how bad Titus is. So I think it works really well. And I think if people get upset by it, that's good because it means that these things still shock us as they should. Um, and in the context of a horror film and in the context of the character, I think it was handled quite well. But I do agree
Mhm.
with the juxtaposition of the two fights. I thought it was so cool because you go from something that's very chilling and, very disturbing to something very funny. It can sound like very tricky to achieve, and I think it could have easily be done wrong and sort of made both of them quite cheap. But I think the film really handles this well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it was. I think also, the horror films. The people will be watching this are some young men and maybe some young women who maybe victims of it are suffering for it, and sometimes showing it through a certain type of media where it's very popular with the people who the message is targeting. This may be one way of showing it. Guys, this is real horror. We don't want any of this, excuse my language, crap here, you know. You're not a real person, you know, so think about what you're saying. So let's just round this one up. Becky, what is your final thoughts? And if you want to give a little rating as well at the end.
So I would give this a 3.5, maybe pushing 4 stars. I do think it's a really good film. I think it's a very natural, like we've said, it's a very natural sequel to the first one.
Yeah,
Ready or Not definitely could have been a self-contained story, but I feel like how they expanded it in this feels earned and it works. It's everything. Like we see so many horror sequels that just do not work. They're nowhere near as good. Like we had Return to Silent Hill earlier this year, like
yeah,
another installment in the Silent Hill franchise, and it was absolutely terrible. We have Scream 7, and it was absolutely terrible. Like we're so used to really bad horror sequels. And I feel like this is an example of a horror sequel done right. I feel like the directors really looked at what worked with the first one and did that, while definitely making it feel like this is a unique film. Like it definitely has a different tone to the original. Like I said, I love the performances in it. I think that's where it really shines, where it's being really ridiculous and focusing on the very human elements. That's where it really works. There's a couple of bits where, pacing's a little off in places, and there's bits that could be shorter, bits that could be longer. But I quite like that sort of rough around the edges feel to it. It's what sort of prevents it from being really great. But I also quite like that it is just an easy popcorn horror. Like sometimes we do just need to watch something that isn't, maybe the next Bringer Back or something like that, which I discussed when I was last on here, something that you really sink your teeth into and looking
yeah.
at the metaphors and thinking about that sort of film. This ain't. But I think that's great. I do think it knows that it's that sort of film, and that's why it works. And I can definitely see we're probably going to get more of these. But after seeing this one, I'm quite excited. I would definitely like to see more Ready or Not films and see what they could do with it.
Yep, so that's 3.5 for you. And Clotilde, what about yourself?
I thought about it for a while, but I've decided to give it a 4 because I had so much fun and I think it's a really good sequel. It's not, like we said, it's really not easy to make a sequel, especially in a film with the first one being so kind of definitive as it was. And I really appreciated the work that they did and how much they've expanded the universe so well. So, 4 stars. I had a great time.
Yep, so that's 4 stars. Myself, I'm going for about 3.5. As I said, I enjoyed it. It's a popcorn movie. If you love the Sam Raimi type of blood and gore and soaked in blood, because there's a lot of bits in it where you see them, they're expecting explosions. Some of the kills were very good, as in when I mentioned bath time. That is, oh, that's a good one. It had its comedy moments. The comedy worked well in it. Same again. It is very much. You can see the big Sam Raimi influences here. I think this is a movie that the Radio Silence guys, Matt Bettinelli Altman and Tyler Gillett, decided to do instead of the Scream 7, which is My hands up being a horror fan. It's one of the franchises I've never liked for day one, and so I don't really care about it. But I will watch it if I'm asked to give my opinion on it. I love the sibling rivalry, not just with Faith and Grace, but obviously with Ursula and Titus. No, the action was elevated, more gore. The chemistry between Weaving and Newton was very, very good. They took the satanic side of things. It's a bit of a farce there, they took it at an absurd level, especially the end scene, folks. We're not going to spoil it, but that just goes, that's just absolutely crazy. That Michelle Gellar and Shauna Tosi were very, very good in their characters. However, it did get the sort of tone did get a wee bit diluted there as well. The lore was a wee bit convoluted a bit times, overstuffed. It got a lot bit less focused there. But for Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which is the full name. Every time I say the full name, I'm going to break into, is it the Fugees, whatever it was that sang that song? I'm giving it 3.5, so that's 3.5, 3.5, and 4 stars. And for the first episode of the Chronicle, episode 57, we will be reviewing Ryan Gosling's Project Hail Mary. So, Clotilde, would you like to tell us a little bit about what the film's about, and if you liked it or didn't like it?
Absolutely. So, like you said, the film stars Ryan Gosling. And when the film begins, he wakes up in space and he doesn't really know what's happening or why he's there. He doesn't really have any memories. So he starts looking through his spaceship to figure out, first of all, where he is and why he's there. And he finds out that he's the only member of the crew that survived. And he's so far from Earth that he'll never actually manage to come back. He has woken up from an induced coma. And as he sort of goes around the spaceship, he somewhat gains his memories back. And so we see really most of the movie through flashback as he remembers what happened. In short, scientists discovered that there was a sort of line going from the sun to Venus, which was essentially dimming the sun, which, caused a whole lot of issues if the sun starts cooling down and eventually stops. So this is sort of like the inciting incident of the film. At the beginning, he is molecular biologist that works as a high school teacher or middle school, sorry, is a middle school teacher. But sort of gets recruited to study this phenomenon, figure out what's happening with the sun, which is then why he ends up in this mission. I really like the film. There's so much to love about it. It's first of all, it's quite well paced. I think it's quite long.
Yeah.
Is it over 2 hours?
2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't think you feel that. I think it's paced very well because there's so much action. Um, there is obviously quite a lot of science, naturally, but I think the sort of like key scientific elements are really well delivered and relatively quickly. So you don't feel like you're sort of getting very long exposition scenes or a lot of background info. I think the information is delivered very well. And I think they put so much action in it and so much quite literally, movement and twists that that's probably why it doesn't feel so long and also why the sort of more technical information for the world building in terms of sci-fi don't feel that heavy because there is quite a lot they need to deliver. They need to explain this Petrova line, they need to explain what's happening, why it's involved, and sort of like global organization that's trying to save the earth and stakes, what happens if he fails. There's a lot that they need to deliver and deliver quickly, but they do it really well. I really was a big fan of how they delivered the key information for the audience. I also really like Ryan Gosling in general, no, but like his acting was really good. I feel like I always say this when it comes to Ryan Gosling, but He's such a good transformative actor, I feel like. If you've seen him in other projects, you would know that he can really embody a character. I think when it comes to Ryland Grace, who's the protagonist of this film, he perhaps does so even more in the sense that it almost feels like there's two characters. One is him before, if you will, like before going on the space mission when he sort of like gets introduced to it, and the other one is him on the spaceship when he's remembering the whole thing. So there's a lot he needs to convey, and he needs to convey this change and this difference, and there's a lot of character growth that he does, I think, as well. But overall, I really think it's a wonderful film, and I also appreciate how well it's made in terms of portraying space. It's never easy, because it obviously has to feel quite majestic. It's space. And I think Project Hail Mary does a really good job. There were some scenes when it was actually giving me anxiety because of how they portrayed space, which I think is a good thing. It means they did a really good job as sort of like portraying the magnitude of it. I also, worth saying that I did see in IMAX, and naturally this adds quite a lot to the experience. I would recommend seeing it on the biggest screen possible because it is one of those movies that are just like such a pleasure to see on screen. But I haven't seen it on a smaller screen, but I would imagine it still delivers quite well because of how well the space scenes are shot. If for nothing else, it would be worth it just for this. But there's so much else to love. Rocky, who's like sort of Grace's alien friend, is
Yeah.
also so cute, so adorable, so smart. And I really like how they did how they portrayed him and how they designed the alien and how they sort of like had to really create this alien world and multiple planets. And we see so much of the universe that is crazy. I think they did a really good job of showing the different planets with such details. It really shows how much research was done visually to create something that is somewhat believable for the audience, but also unique. The other planets are very much different than the Earth. The alien species is very different than the humans. And I like how that was done, like both from a world building point of view, but also purely from an aesthetic point of view as well. Um, I have to say, I did feel towards the end, I did start to feel the length a little bit, in the sense that were at least two times when I personally felt like the movie was gonna end or could have ended. Um, it's not a huge problem because I think the end does feel quite natural and it's very good, but it did feel like it dragged on just a little bit towards the end. I also want to say the music is really good. I talked about the pacing. I think part of what makes it, quite incredible, at least in the first, I want to say like three quarters of the film, is the pacing. Sorry, it's the music because it helps the pacing
Yeah.
so much, and it really conveys this whole sort of like space travel and enormous stakes as well. So I forget who did the music, I'm afraid, but it was it was really excellent. They did a great job.
Yeah, the music was various artists. Talking to the music, the karaoke scene with Sandra Hüller, her character Eva Stratt. She was quite a unique person. She's quite an emotionless person. You could see she was married to the job type thing, and obviously under the circumstances, they were running out of time. They had to convince Ryland Grace, Ryan Gosling's character, to jump on board the project as well. And there was a scene, I think it was Harry Styles' song. I think it was "Sign of the Times." That sort of
Yes, it was some of the times.
yeah, that stood out, and I think it was just to show Eva steps out of character. She's got a talent there; she can sing, and I believe they actually done that scene unexpectedly. This film
Oh,
had a lot.
really?
I think so. Don't quote me. I might be wrong there. They try to get her to
That's
sing.
so cool.
I think because this is Ryan Gosling's sort of passion project. He was trying to convince her to sing a certain song. She went, nope, 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 nope. I'll sing this one. And she just went straight in because you see it in the film, folks. They're on a ship, as in the sense of on the sea, not a spaceship, which we see Ryland on quite a lot in this film. They're in a room with all the Navy people and all the people that's involved in trying to let the hair down, trying to get this project up to save Earth. And she's standing in another joint. He's there as well, trying to get on well with the folks, the other people, and then she just walks straight in and sings Harry Styles' Sign of the Times. Folks, I am not a fan of Harry Styles. I had to had to research. I had to go on the internet. I knew it was Harry Styles, but I didn't know the name of the song. There's a girl that I work with, a couple of girls I work with. I work for an airline, the ground staff, and they are mad Harry Styles fans. And as soon as I told them, no, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to watch this. So yeah, definitely the music stands out in this. Ryan Gosling himself, he's sort of the driving force in the movie. He's sort of gullible charm that sort of keeps things watchable, and she keeps the film driving. The thing about Rocky, folks, he's like a rock spider or a rock crab is the sort of closest thing you see. It's actually a puppet. James Ortiz, I think, was the puppeteer, and it got to a point apparently with him and Ryan Gosling, because Ryan Gosling was on. He was on. He was actually a lot of times on in the set himself quite a lot. Two of them get that connected. They actually ended up sort of working off each other and all with the script and that. The way I would describe Rocky, yeah, he is like a spider type alien. He's a bit like a Wally, like Disney Pixar's Wally, like an alien Wally. I don't think it would have worked if they used CGI. So I think they did the right thing, doing a sort of puppet type thing. Don't get me wrong, there might be a
I
little.
agree.
I think there might be a little close scenes where you don't see the whole of them. You might be CGI. I think they call it's Andy Weir. It's based on his book. Andy Weir did The Martian. There's a lot of The Martian in this as well. I think he calls it hard science fiction. So I think they try and get as close to the science as possible. And basically, this film is, I think what it does is it starts to show why science and the power of science and how important it is. Because as when Ryland and Rocky is a name that Ryland gives the alien because they try to communicate. Again, it was quite hard, and suddenly he's made that thing where they're able to communicate. So one of the things you get out of Star Trek, where they just stick it, must have just stick it in your neck, and you can speak every language, every person you cross. It basically says science is a universal sort of language, and it sort of shows the sort of logic and how it's so universal, and it's sort of allowing the communication and sort of problem solving, even with an alien species. So it also plays on we're not alone in the universe as well. Rocky's ship, I liked the design of it. It might be a silly question here, Clotilde. Have you seen Interstellar?
I have.
Yes.
You know what? I really don't like that people compare this to Interstellar.
No,
I feel like, just because it's movie like about space, it doesn't have to be Interstellar, and I think it's just not fair, is it? Like it's not a fair comparison.
yeah. The thing I was going to say about Interstellar, there is little things in it that remind me of Interstellar, but Moon's another one. 2001 Space Odyssey and Silent Running. That's this film owes a lot to the Bruce Dern film for the 1970s. What I was saying is that the library scene in Interstellar, with all the lines. I think
Yeah.
Rocky's ship remind me of that, the design,
Mm,
because it's
I
quite
see
a
that.
yeah, it's quite a hard ship to design, but it's quite a unique ship design. They haven't went for the sort of generic thing there with the design of the spaceship and how he comes over to Ryland's ship, the Hail Mary, there as well, and a lot of this is, as I said, it's got a lot. Silent Running came out in 1972. It influenced this movie a lot, like the isolation and the sort of friendship. There's a little joke here. They say that men can only make friends when it's near the end. It is war, or it's the end of the world that is about to happen there, you know. But there's a lot of the emotional connection between Rocky and Ryland, very much like Bruce Dern's part, because in there, in that film, at the beginning, he has three little faceless robots, service robots. He's a botanist, and a bit like Ryland, he's not an astronaut, he's a microbiologist, but he has to adapt really quickly in the name of sort of saving humanity here. And Bruce Dern's character, uh, that he has to adapt a lot as well because he has to save the plants, the trees that's on this spaceship. He's a bit of a mutiny on board the ship as well, and his only connection was these little faceless robots, which actually had actors in it. There was actually actors in those little robots. I'm not sure if is it Kenny Rogers, the actor who played RTD to it. I don't know if he was one of the actors in this film, that one. And it was also the tone of the sort of the tone of the survival. It was quite intimate, you know. It was very atmospheric. That film, and so was Project Hail Mary, and it's got a very sort of 70s tone feel to it. I think, see, at times, Clotilde, when you used to see Ryland and he's sitting in the sort of cockpit and he's trying to figure out what to do, you know, and get things sorted. The sort of colour grading remind me a lot of 2001 Space Odyssey. So there's a lot of that in it as well. Greg Fraser, he's the DOP on this. He's also the people know him as his cinematographer for the Dune film, for the Denis Villeneuve versions. So if you love Remy, you know what you're expecting, and you're quite right also that the IMAX, I saw it in IMAX as well. I don't have my unlimited card anymore for the Wilder Cine. The cinema I worked at, I used to go in the city centre of Glasgow. That closed, and the new cinema's like 6, 7 mile outside the city centre, and it's mission impossible to get to. So obviously I've got to individually pay, and I couldn't believe how much it was to buy the IMAX ticket. It was £20. I know that might not be a lot in London, but up north it is a hell of a lot. Yeah, it had a very retro feel as well in it, and as I said, it's a visually fantastic film. The humour, Christopher, is it Christopher Miller and Phil Lord? People will know that name from, like, is it A Cloudy Chance of Meatballs, the Lego movies, 21 Jump Street, and more recently the Spider-Verse movies. That's same, and they're about to, I think, is it this year or next year, the third Spider-Verse movie is coming out, the animated one, or the Miles Morales one.
Think so.
It's either this year or next year. It's been delayed a few years. So you know the level of humour you're getting here, you know, and but I also think that's a downside to it as well. The humour, I think, was sort of dad joke level. A lot of jokes, a lot of the humour worked. There's one bit he had like the glass pane up against his face, and he was sort of replicating the Terry Stamp Superman movie as Zod. And then in there was that bit in it. There was the bit I liked also was the bit when he was trying to get the voice for Rocky, and he was going through on the little what was available there, and he gets some. No, we're not having that one. We'll keep that one. That sounds good. And then obviously Rocky liked that as well. So the dad jokes, I think it changed the film tonally a little bit because Lord and Miller they wanted the humour in there, which they definitely got, but they wanted a more serious film, and I think that the film struggled to get a little balance, a little bit in it. I'm pimping on here, so we'll try and round up now. So Clotilde, if you get any your sort of final thoughts on the film, and then a rating, and then I'll say what I liked, I didn't like about the movie as well.
Yes. I did, like I said, I did really like it. I think it's a really good cinema experience as well. It's not just a movie that you can watch on Netflix. I don't think it's even gonna come out on Netflix, but of course, you can see it on the smaller screen, and I think it's still going to be quite enjoyable. But personally, I think the cinema experience really adds a lot to this film. And I really liked, like I said, the acting, I think was really good. You mentioned Sandra Hüller. I think she was brilliant in it. I think she's a really good actress
Yeah,
in general. I really enjoy her performances. Ever since I saw her in Anatomy of a Fall, personally. But I think as well the writing is quite good. As I mentioned, the sort of combination of genres. You talked about the comedy as well. It's quite tricky to get it right, and I do
yeah,
think it's not a perfect film. It it does at times struggle a little bit, but I think overall it's very much worth it, and it's also very exciting to see something, that you can tell this was like a passion project. It was something that people put a lot of love into it, and something so good for the sci-fi genre. I feel like it that doesn't always happen.
yeah.
It's not a genre that has a lot of wins, because it's so hard to do it right. And yeah, I give it 4 stars
4 star.
overall, because I think it has some negatives and it's not
Yeah.
perfect, but it's definitely one of the we're only March, but it's definitely one of the my favorite movies of the year so far. I'm sure this will change, but so far it's one of the standouts.
We do have a very, 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 very positive 5 star review over at the People's Movies. Scott Davis, my fellow editor, he reviewed it, and congratulations to getting your quoted on the UK part of the promotion. So well done there, Scott. Myself, I'm giving it 3.5. I think me being a bit older, the idea of sort of loneliness and that in films, the sort of redemption things, that isn't very original. It did it well, but it has been done before. We've mentioned a few films in that. What it does well is the redemptions and the selflessness of it. No, Ryland sort of transforms from that sort of timid teacher to becoming like a hero. And it's sort of selfless choice, about survival of a species, because there's something that happens in the movie, and it's may cost them getting back as well. Uh, I think the movie probably could have been cut about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes at most. I found it a little bit too long. That might have solved the problem, as you said. The last part of the movie, it sort of drags on a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
in the
like.
last act.
Yeah, I liked the sort of flashbacks. It sort of explained how he got to where he
Me
is,
too.
what happened to the crew. It sort of explains the characters a little bit, who he was. However, there's one scene in the movie. I'll just say it's at the end part. What part at the end? I'm not going to go. And I went, oh, you can see it coming. It get really, really predictable. And I went, oh, no. Something to do what he does. He was doing before the world's about to fall apart. His his previous profession, and that getting made it feel like, am I watching a kids movie here? And it sort of lost a mark a bit. You know, yeah, as I said, it had a lot in it. It wasn't perfect, but he carried the movie really, really well. And people, if you can, folks, see it in the biggest screen you can. It won't be a movie for everyone, as I said. There's a lot of sympathies. Some people may even call this art house, because it's a lot of slow, redemptive stuff there as well. The pacing, as I said, length, that might get people. The character Rocky, I believe in the book, and compared to the film, his tone is lowered a little bit. And I've even heard people compared to the book, people comparing him a little bit like Jar Jar Binks. My God, that is that's a big one to call him that. That's a bit of an insult. I really wouldn't call him that. It was more like,
Mm.
as I said, the Disney character that I mentioned. But other than that, it was a highly successful block. It's broke all the records, folks. And it's not every month or every week we get a big blockbuster sci-fi. We get it through other genres, and I'm giving it 3.5 stars. So there you have it, folks. Project Hail Mary. We're giving it 3.5 and 4 stars. And that's your wrap, folks. That was your episode 57 of the Chronicle. Thank you very much for joining me. Project Hail Mary and Ready or Not 2, Here I Come are both in cinemas. Look at your local listings to know what time it's on. Thank you very much, Becci and Clotilde, for joining me. Becci, would you like to let the listeners know where they can listen? They can read some of your writings, your reviews, and where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. So you can find me at BL Sayce Writes over on Blue Sky and Letterboxd, and Becci L Sayce over on Instagram. You can find all of my writing over at Metro UK, Digital Spy, Fangoria, and also at Filmhounds, where I'm the deputy editor. We've got a new issue in the works at the moment that will be out in June. In the meantime, you can buy our current issue. And then outside of that, I've got a couple of physical releases on the horizon. But my most recent one was Birthright with Vinegar Syndrome sister label OCN. You can pick that up on their website now. And yeah, keep an eye out on everything I've got coming up over on social media.
Thank you very much. And Clotilde, where can I find you online and or printed? Or
I am on Instagram at The Perks of Being Chloe. I am on Twitter, which I've updated like 4 months ago, but you can still follow me at Films with Chloe. Letterboxd is also Films with Chloe. And I'm on Blue Sky, but to be honest, I haven't used it in a minute, so
Me too.
don't bother with that one. I write for Film Hounds as well, and for Loud and Clear Reviews, of course, the People's Movies. Make sure to read us. And Movie Marker, I'll stop here. I don't want to keep lists.
And did you mention the last episode? You get any further on the white lies, little white lies thing?
Yes, occasionally, but I'm really proud of the piece I wrote for Little White Lies, and
Yeah,
hopefully I'll have something coming out soon as well.
yeah, that'd be good. A lot of impressive links there, as in myself and the website and the People's Movies. At Facebook, we're at the People's Movies. X, we're at the People's Movie. Instagram, at the People's Movies. We're also on YouTube at the People's Movies.com. You will also find episodes of the Chronicle Take Two over at YouTube. You'll find a lot of interviews. You'll find a lot of other things there as well. As in the Chronicle itself, you can find it on many of the popular podcast download websites where you usually download your favourite podcast. You find it over there, like Apple, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Sometimes we will continue to chat over at the Chronicle Take Two. So stay tuned on social media and at the People's Movies for future episodes. You can also sign up at the email newsletter for emails over at the People's Movies. That will keep you posted, not just on what we're doing on the podcast, but also any news, reviews, interviews that these two ladies that might be involved in, and any other guys that are there. You can show your support for the Chronicle and the People's Movies with Buy Me a Coffee and at PayPal. You can also share the podcast on social media with your friends and family. And if you're listening to the podcast on one of the popular podcast websites, do give us a rating on there. We are a small independent podcast and a website as well. And sharing rating does help other people find the podcast. I will say we are on Patreon as well. We are still working on it to get more stuff on there, but you can also donate that way as well. Thank you very much, Clotilde and Becci, for joining us. And most of all, thank you very much to you, the listener. Until the next time, enjoy the movies.